condition's real measure isn't seen in towering monuments or crowded cities, but within the overlooked spaces where its most fragile people slowly slip from view away. At the core of America, amid arguments over borders and budgets, a softer crisis emerges, one that fentanyl has transformed into a constant hunter. This lab-made opioid quietly takes lives, weakening communities already broken by inequality.
Politicians are pushing a punitive response that will only make homelessness worse. We need to get these people off the streets so they can start healing after years of trauma of living outside.
As we examine this subject today, joined by concern about the policies guiding our country, let us face this unseen cost, how fentanyl preys on the homeless, intensifying a crisis that calls for, then grief, but action. Through stories of loss and numbers of grief, we'll trace its course and the steps that could lead us forward. Grasping fentanyl, the hidden hunter. To fully grasp the crisis before us, we must examine fentanyl, the lethal synthetic opioid that has swept across the nation. Originally developed as a potent pain reliever, fentanyl is up to 100 times stronger than morphine and was intended only for tightly regulated medical use. Yet in the wrong hands, it has turned into a deadly tool. Drug cartels and street sellers frequently mix fentanyl into fake prescription pills and common substances like heroin or cocaine, often without the user's awareness.
Well, I've been stuck on this fentanyl for a few years now.
What could you say it's been like, being a fentanyl addict?
Oh man, it's a roller coaster. You get your good times and your bad times. But then again, everything in life is like that, you know, jobs, you know. But I would say it's a more intense roller coaster than
Even a minuscule dose, no more than a few grains of salt, can trigger a fatal overdose by halting the heart or shutting down the lungs. This makes fentanyl uniquely dangerous. It acts quickly, leaving almost no time for rescue. For people experiencing homelessness, fentanyl is often viewed as a quick escape from the brutal reality of day-to-day survival. It is inexpensive, widely available, and lethal.
That's the best way to describe it. It's like you're literally crawling out of your own skin. When you're dope sick, it's like you don't even want to live. You don't even think you're gonna live. I just kind of got, you know, wrapped up in it, you know, by taking pain medicine. It just brought me down a dark road.
Dealers blend it into drugs with no regard for the outcome, transforming an ordinary addiction into a life or death risk. The outcome has been a sharp increase in overdose fatalities, especially within homeless populations. In Los Angeles, for instance, overdose deaths among the unsheltered climbed by 55% between 2019 and 2021, with fentanyl becoming the primary cause by 2023. These deaths are more than statistics. They stand for human lives lost in a quiet, largely invisible epidemic. The origins of this crisis trace back to the early 2000s, when opioids were broadly prescribed, saturating the market with highly addictive drugs. Today, fentanyl crosses the border from Mexico, slipping past law enforcement and intensifying the crisis. In 2024 alone, the DEA confiscated more than 55 million counterfeit pills containing fentanyl, an astonishing figure. But for the homeless, this goes beyond a border debate. It is a toxin seeping into society's most exposed communities. Fentanyl shows no discrimination. It targets those with nowhere else to go. In 2024, more than 87,000 people died from overdoses nationwide, many tied to fentanyl. This is not only a public health crisis, it is a moral one. These deaths underscore how easily the most vulnerable can be ignored and the fatal cost of that neglect. Fentanyl is a quiet assassin, and it is time to confront it directly. Unbearable data figures we can't look away from. When the clamor of political arguments quiets down the harsh truth of our nation's overdose, emergency becomes impossible to deny, especially when we look closely at the numbers figures that expose the devastating impact on the homeless. These are not merely data points. They stand for lives ended, families broken, and communities pulled apart. Drug overdose fatalities have climbed dramatically over time, rising from 16,849 in 1999 to an overwhelming 106,699 in 2021. Although there has been a modest drop in recent years, the crisis remains far from resolved. For people experiencing homelessness, the reality is even more severe, with dangers that are frequently overlooked by those in power. In Los Angeles County, more than 2,500 unhoused individuals died in 2023, and 45% of those deaths were linked to drug or alcohol overdoses. Fentanyl was a significant factor, appearing in over 70% of those cases. The overall mortality rate among the homeless is still disturbingly high at 326 deaths per 100,000 people, even as recent years have shown a leveling off. Between 2019 and 2021, that rate jumped by 56%, and communities continue to struggle with the aftermath. Comparable patterns can be seen nationwide. In King County, Washington, overdose deaths among homeless populations rose sharply during the pandemic, with death rates far exceeding those of the general public. In Santa Cruz, California, 42 overdoses led to 26 deaths, underscoring the depth of addiction within homeless communities. While there is a measure of optimism with overdose deaths dropping by 24% nationwide in 2024, this offers little relief to those living without shelter. Research shows that for every 1% rise in homelessness, drug-related deaths increase by nearly the same margin. The homeless face heightened risk from fentanyl, which is inexpensive, widely available, and frequently added to other drugs without the user realizing it. These figures point to a broader failure to confront the underlying causes of homelessness and addiction, including underfunded mental health care shortages, of affordable housing, and the ongoing opioid epidemic. The crisis of homelessness is the outcome of deep systemic breakdowns, and it is an issue we can no longer afford to disregard. Human stories, lives we've overlooked. In any serious reflection on our nation's condition, there comes a point when cold numbers and policy arguments give way to something far more tangible, real people. These are the men and women whose lives have been shattered by fentanyl, a substance that transforms private hardship into irreversible tragedy. Their experiences force us to see the human reality behind the headlines. Consider Chris Tawanu from Portland, Oregon. At just 18, Chris had begun rebuilding his life, finding housing through a nonprofit and enrolling again in community college. Yet as hope finally appeared within reach, fentanyl erased it completely. After aging out of the foster care system, and enduring the isolation brought on by COVID-19, Chris was caught in fentanyl's quiet hold. In December 2023, his life was honored during the Houseless Day of Remembrance, a ceremony marking young lives lost to homelessness and addiction crises intensified by the pandemic. Not far away in Los Angeles, Michael Flores lived in a tent on Etna Street, doing his best to survive day to day. His brief placement in housing through Project Roomkey offered limited relief, but fentanyl became his means of escape, his pill of forgetting. He used it to dull the pain of untreated medical conditions, but it ultimately ended his life in 2023. His passing was one among many in Los Angeles, where more than 2,500 homeless individuals died that year. Friends remembered Michael for his gentle humor and hopes for something better, dreams that fentanyl abruptly ended. Then there is Ronald Paul Hams, a military veteran who spent his days on Skid Row, helping others by carrying Narcan, saving more than a dozen people from fentanyl overdoses. Still, even Ronald could not avoid fentanyl's reach. He lost relatives and close friends to the drug and witnessed how deeply it tears communities apart. His efforts, while heroic, revealed a painful reality. Fentanyl does not only kill, it severs bonds, leaving people alone, even in death. Together, these stories show how fentanyl targets the most exposed, those without medical care, those trapped in desperate situations. From the heart condition that ended Angeline Swan's life in Van Nuys to countless others lost to addiction and despair, fentanyl threads its damage through the core of homeless communities. These people are not just figures in a report. They are sons, daughters, veterans, and neighbors. Their lives mattered, and their stories compel us to ask harder questions about the policies that allowed this crisis to grow. Community consequences, a cycle of isolation and harm. The effects of fentanyl extend far beyond individual tragedies, unsettling entire neighborhoods and placing overwhelming pressure on public institutions. This is not only a personal struggle, it is a destructive force that intensifies isolation, encourages violence, and weighs heavily on society in ways that cannot be ignored. In cities such as Portland and Los Angeles, where homeless encampments have become common, fentanyl deepens the separation of those already most at risk. People withdraw further, using drugs alone in motel rooms or beneath tarps, cut off from the informal support systems that once connected these communities. That isolation, intensified by the lingering aftermath of the pandemic, often results in overdoses that go unseen, with no one present to deliver life-saving aid like Narcan. As fentanyl's hold grows stronger, it fuels a downward spiral of desperation. Petty offenses like shoplifting can escalate into violent crimes driven by the constant need to secure drugs. In states such as Oregon, where youth homelessness continues to rise, fentanyl has compounded an already fragile reality. Community spaces that once offered stability and connection are now closed or overwhelmed, leaving young people adrift without meaningful support. The consequences of fentanyl do not remain confined to the homeless. They spill into public services and the broader economy. In counties like Hennepin, Minnesota, emergency departments face relentless pressure from opioid-related cases, many involving fentanyl. This overwhelms healthcare systems, forcing a shift away from long-term treatment toward non-stop crisis response. In Los Angeles, people without housing are 38.9 times more likely to die from a fentanyl overdose than those who are housed. The economic cost is immense, with billions spent on encampment cleanups and burial expenses funds that could otherwise support prevention through affordable housing solutions. Beyond financial strain, fentanyl corrodes trust within neighborhoods. In areas most affected by homelessness and addiction, residents feel unsafe. Businesses shut their doors earlier, and suspicion replaces connection. This is not a series of isolated events. Evidence shows that as homelessness increases, drug-related deaths rise alongside it, revealing how fentanyl rips through the social fabric. The lingering question is why fentanyl is still treated as separate from deeper problems like inequality and limited access to care. Until those systemic failures are confronted, this cycle of hardship will continue unchecked. Root causes: poverty, lack of support, and the black market. At the core of the fentanyl crisis affecting homeless populations in America lies a deeper combination of forces: poverty, fragile support networks, and an underground market that targets those with the fewest defenses. This is not a matter of chance or coincidence. It is the outcome of prolonged neglect and structural breakdowns. The crisis grows out of economic disparity, where flat wages and soaring housing costs push individuals and families toward instability. Once pushed to the margins, the availability of low-cost drugs like fentanyl becomes a brief escape from the relentless pressures of survival. In states such as New York, opioid-related deaths surged during the isolation of the pandemic, with poverty and job loss playing a central role in that rise. Evictions further accelerate the problem. For every 1% increase in homelessness, drug-related fatalities rise almost in parallel. Shifting landlord-tenant regulations have added to housing insecurity, forcing people onto the streets where fentanyl is readily available and often used as a coping mechanism. Untreated mental health conditions also play a significant role. Many people turn to opioids to manage emotional pain, yet a mental health system weakened by decades of insufficient funding cannot provide sustained or effective care. The situation is worsened by the influence of the illegal drug market, where fentanyl enters the country in massive quantities. International trafficking networks move fentanyl precursors that are later converted into substances far cheaper and far stronger than heroin. In 2026 alone, authorities seized more than 55 million counterfeit pills containing fentanyl at the southern border, underscoring the vast scale of the problem. This inexpensive and highly potent drug spreads rapidly through communities, often mixed into cocaine or methamphetamine, triggering fatal overdoses in cities like Baltimore and San Francisco. The damage caused by the black market is intensified by failures within both healthcare and justice systems. Pharmaceutical companies flooded communities with prescription opioids in the early 2000s, creating conditions that later fed demand for illegal alternatives. Meanwhile, a justice system that repeatedly incarcerates people struggling with addiction instead of treating them often reinforces the very cycle it aims to stop. In states such as California, young adults aging out of foster care encounter minimal support, contributing to higher risks of addiction and homelessness. Fentanyl flourishes in this landscape of inequality and abandonment. It reflects a broader social approach that emphasizes punishment rather than prevention or care. Even so, signs of possibility remain. By confronting these root drivers, poverty, inadequate support, and the unchecked black market, we can begin to restore lives and disrupt the cycle of addiction and homelessness. Moving forward demands a change in focus from short-term control toward lasting humane solutions. Paths forward and promise acting now. As we consider the fentanyl crisis affecting people without housing across the nation, the moment has come to move past analysis and turn toward practical, immediate solutions. Hope is not an abstract idea. It exists in proven evidence-based actions that can save lives right now. One of the most effective tools available is naloxone, a medication capable of reversing opioid overdoses and preventing death. In areas such as Maricopa County, Arizona, public health initiatives distribute naloxone alongside fentanyl test strips, allowing individuals to identify the drug before it becomes fatal. This strategy has already lowered emergency room visits and preserved countless lives. Another essential step is widening access to medication-assisted treatment, including buprenorphine and methadone, particularly through outpatient clinics serving homeless populations. When combined with counseling, MAT addresses addiction at its root and significantly improves long-term recovery outcomes. Programs in cities like Portland have successfully woven these treatments into support systems, stabilizing youth who aged out of foster care and helping them move toward more secure futures. On the policy front, states such as California are setting examples with integrated approaches that balance enforcement with harm reduction. California's master plan has boosted fentanyl seizures while also investing heavily in recovery beds and peer support networks, reaching people where they live on the streets rather than behind closed doors. At the federal level, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration funds community mental health programs that deliver culturally responsive care to homeless individuals, addressing both substance use and co-occurring mental health conditions. Grassroots action remains equally vital. In places like Skid Row and Hennepin County, street medics and local coalitions provide hands-on support, distributing Narcan and offering prevention services. These community-based responses have proven effective in reducing fentanyl deaths and empowering neighborhoods to respond collectively. For homeless individuals where fentanyl and methamphetamine use often overlap, solutions must address both opioids and stimulants. What matters most is action now expanding naloxone access, pushing housing-first strategies, and strengthening peer-led initiatives. Together, these efforts are lowering mortality and renewing hope among those facing the greatest risk. Ending the pattern. As the resonance of these stories and statistics settles into the quiet of reflection, we arrive at a moment of decision, whether to allow fentanyl's hidden toll to carve deeper scars into the conscience of our nation, or to rise with the calm resolve of those who believe renewal is possible even after devastation. From the nature of the threat to the roots of its harm, we have followed a trail marked by immense loss, yet also illuminated by practical hope, harm reduction in action policy shifts, and the strength of community connection. The homeless in America, who carry this weight most heavily, remind us that a society is defined not by how it grieves the broken, but by how it chooses to repair what has been damaged.